great.
Okay.
Oh, I don't even have tea left. Let me pour some tea.
Welcome to the Picard Maneuver.
Welcome. Again. For those who... Oh, sorry.
My name's Tim.
And I'm Joel.
And we just saw Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 10, the final episode of the season, titled Farewell.
And we just streamed... We didn't want to talk about this long, but we need to at least say. We did just do a stream, and we're redoing it because audio messed up. But thanks for watching, Mac, and we're back.
Yeah, hi,
Hi,
Mac.
I'm going to check something really quick because it looks actually like that camera might... Are these still... No, yeah, we've lost it. I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Fair enough.
Start with your kind of assessment of the episode.
Yep, so first things first, this is going to be a spoiler type of review. We're going to get right into the episode. My thoughts is there were a couple parts of this episode I liked. There was a couple characters I was really excited to see. We finally also saw some of Q. But overall, this episode, well, first of all, everything that we thought was going to happen basically happened. It was a very unsurprising episode. Almost everything sort of wrapped up the way we thought it would. Even some things we were like, that can't happen because it wouldn't make any sense. It still just happened, and it didn't make any sense. And but other than that, we had a cameo that we liked, and and
I'll do quickly mine as well, my summary, in case you just want to watch the intro of this and not our whole episode, although it's going to be shorter. Overall, season was disappointed. I was disappointed. Last episode was actually, out of the season, probably one of the episodes I liked more. I think I liked episode 1, somewhat episode 2, and then final episode. But anyway, none of them I really liked that much. Didn't really like the season that much. There was a lot of confusing stuff. We did predict a lot of it. There was, I said this before,
and credit where credit is due. Mac predicted a lot of it too.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes I'll say something and then Mac will comment and I'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Actually, he'll like kind of explain it and I'll be like, actually, he knows what he's talking about. But one of the biggest complaints. Too much going on, not enough focus on the characters we wanted to see. No stakes. Nothing felt like they were ever really in danger. Characters would die, but then it'd be like, well, they're probably going to come back. Or they'd,
and everything seems to be backwards written. Like they wanted to get someone at a point to do something, so they reverse engineer the plot to get them there, and then arbitrary, everyone has transporters or doesn't have transporters.
Right.
Well, let's get into it.
Agreed. So we start at... Chateau Picard still.
Back at the Chateau, they're regrouping. They've decided that whole... Because the Borg, I forgot about this when watching the episode, but there was that whole thing about there needs to be two...
The prophecy. One will die, one will live. So they're kind of talking about that and what's happening now. Because basically, we left them last episode. They kind of defeated... The Borg thing isn't an issue anymore. They dealt with that, although she flew off and who knows. Well, we do know. We predicted it, but... now they're like, well, where'd Adam Soon go? Because you asked that last episode. You're like, where the heck did he go? He just like ran off. But then they're like, oh, well, he has access to the transporters that Girardi was using, and they're...
we're inferring that he must have access to transporters because he jumps around.
But they literally say it this episode, though.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they said something about the transporters.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Well,
but so they're there. Picard makes reference to the bullet holes.
Oh, yeah.
Which he remembers as a kid.
Yeah, which means the catacomb guys, the catacomb statue guys in the catacombs, they still exist too.
Yeah, it confirms that right now the house that they're in is the house that child Picard was in. So anything that's in that house now should be the same as the stuff he dealt with as a kid. So we talked about last episode, they transported... it was a stupid thing anyway. But anyway, they transported some of the Borg into the basement of the house, into the walls. And we were like, won't that end up in the house? And we thought, well, maybe not because maybe the timeline changes. Like, no, this confirms that this is the same... house that Picard ends up in as a kid. So must have been a creepy thing, but I guess he just played it off as like, that's some artwork. That's some artwork. Mm-hmm. So anyway, then
they beam back to
Laris 2,
the Watcher, Laris or Talons,
who we finally memorized or know her name. Hands not everyone, but hands Rios a transporter pen.
She had transporter pens all along.
Which even in this episode could be used better and
more effectively to stop Adam Soon, who's the only thing that's a problem right now.
The issue with the transporter pens is that they're controlled by the writers of the show. If they were controlled by actual characters, they'd be like... I take that back a little bit, because I know that transporters are one of those things in technologies, even... why did I forget the name?
Replicators?
You always know I'm thinking... Yes, it's replicators. I always forget the name replicators. Those are the types of tech that could be used a lot to like solve problems.
Yeah, with Star Trek we have a lot of suspension of disbelief.
That's okay though. That's okay.
With consistent use of technology.
Right. So I'm okay with that.
We go with that because of the way Star Trek is usually written better. But
Yeah,
they focus
yeah.
so much on who has a transporter. Anyway, we talked so much about that.
That's us talking. So anyway, back to here. She hands that out. Rios takes one. And then she's like, I'm going to go do something. And she kind of talked about, again, they talked about one must live, one must die. Picard gives her a look and she's like, not right now, Picard. And you're like, oh, something's going on.
The camera moves in on her eyes and you can tell she's going to sacrifice
Something
herself.
bad's going to happen. And so in this moment where she transport pens away, Picard goes next to her and transport pens with her. And I brought up, how do those transport pens work? Is it based on proximity? And then I was like, I don't really think so because everyone else was close enough. Like, how does it, anyway, it doesn't really make sense again, but somehow by going near her, he transport pens with her. So, and she's also talked about how she's going to go to the Europa mission. That's where she's going. Anyway, then
the rest of them, so Raffi, Seven, and Rios, go to Adam Soong's lair, which he's conveniently left an audio recording of exposition explaining what they have to do in the next scene.
Yeah, which is very, again,
which
James
I laughed
Bond
out loud.
It's like, ha ha ha, you found my lair, and you found that I'm, doing
I've left
things.
These drones for you to
drones.
destroy.
And then there was kind of this idea with the drones, which here they are, that this was like a backup plan of Soong, and he kind of had them, but then he did make them really easy to, I guess in his mind, or the writer's minds, they thought that this would be drama. This would be like almost like diffusing a bomb. It kind of felt like they were trying to diffuse a bomb because I can't remember if it's Raffi or Rios. I think it's Raffi that says he's set them up so that if we mess with them too much or try to stop them, it'll explode. But then they start messing with them and they don't explode.
So it's arbitrary. There's no stakes.
There's no stakes. So then they're like, well, Soong isn't here. So, of course, I mean, it makes sense that he would be at the Europa mission because plan B is the drones. Plan A is I'm going to go and poison hand somebody.
Yeah, he's going to try to assassinate her directly.
If you saw the episode, you know exactly what poison hand is. I'm coining that. So
neurotoxins.
No, poison handing.
Okay.
Okay.
One thing I love about in this episode is we see a lot of really crazy struts.
Oh, I mean, you could tell that Brent Spiner was loving playing the evil villain, and that's one thing that
his face is crazy.
Redeemed the character a little for me because I think Brent Spiner. I still like Brent Spiner.
Yeah, I love Brent Spiner.
Playing a character like Data for so long, a character that is probably one of my favorite characters of all time. I gotta give him a little leeway, and so just to see him having fun, I didn't really
he loves playing a villain. He loves the facial expressions. He loves like the overtop stuff.
Yeah, and it was a little bit,
and it's fun to watch him. Really, like it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand his motivation, but it's hilarious. It's fun time.
Yeah, so it's fun in that I'm like, I kind of feel like an old pal of Brent Spiner's being like, you go do your evil villain. But anyway, he does strut a lot and he also just grimaces a lot and just always looks annoyed and angry and is mean to everyone. So here he is being mean to someone. There's this lady kind of giving him a tour of the Europa thing because he's like he's donated a lot of money to this. And he just keeps being a jerk to her. And to a point, well, we'll get to it. But then at the same time, we're seeing Talon, Laris 2 at the Europa mission trying to make sure that Rene can go off on her mission. She decides then to kind of break probably what I would think would have been one of her prime directives as a watcher and make direct contact with the person she's been watching and basically say, I need to protect you in this moment. And remember when you were a kid and... She gives her like a little sailboat pin.
It felt very much like she was preparing to sacrifice herself in the next scene.
And wanted to be like remembered.
Yeah, so it felt for that aspect of the narrative, but it didn't really make sense. And it wasn't necessary for her, for what she needed to do, which basically distract Adam Soong from his assassination, because Adam Soong is such a perfect assassinator.
There's no other way to stop him. You have to take the bullet, right? Because he's not going to fail with a Tesla or anything else. So that was a thing that didn't make any sense to me. Here you have a character who has all this future tech, like so many abilities, transporter pens, like future weapons. Adam Soong doesn't have any of this. He's a guy from this time. There's so many ways she could have stopped him. But anyway, so she convinces Rene that I'm here to help you. You got to trust me. And then tells her the story to try to gain her trust. And that's, I guess, the writer's excuse for why she kind of breaks probably what would be her prime directive. And then Adam Soong gets angry more.
He's like,
I think we had.
That lady who was sort of guiding him said something like, "I'm so excited that they finally done this," or "Isn't it? I didn't think they could do this." And he was like, "What?" I can't believe you said that.
How
I hate
dare you say that? I feel like I'm so annoyed. I don't even want to be around you right now. And then he proceeds to like walk
This
away.
trick to like get in there by
And I
himself.
literally I asked you. I was like, was that the writer's way of just like getting him to go off by himself? And you're like, yeah, that's what that was. Or just Brent Spiner was like, can I be a huge jerk in this scene? Can you guys let me be a huge
over the top?
Yeah, and he does. So this was after. I keep wanting to say Laris, but anyway, Laris 2 or like
You
Talon.
can call her Laris. It doesn't matter.
Sure. So yeah, it basically is. So this is after Laris says, "Will you trust me?" And it's supposed to leave the audience not knowing if she is going to trust her. So we go to the next scene and we see her, and the audience is supposed to be like, "Did she trust her or did she not?" Is this because then immediately
Because there must be two for one.
one must die, one must live,
Yeah.
and it like cryptic anything in it. As a writer, if you're writing a screenplay or a teleplay and you're trying to make something interesting, if someone in the writing room throws out like a cryptic idea, that like probably turn it down, because like those kind of ideas are always just going to generally confuse an audience. And if they don't have good payoff where you go, oh, like that's cool, then it probably wasn't a good idea. So anyway, she's in the hallway and Adam Sung does, as I mentioned earlier, I don't even remember what I coined. Death touch? No. Face.
It's a very awkward thing where he's touching her face.
He touches her, cradles her face, kind of. And do we even know before this point? Does Adam Sung know Rene? Like, did they have a relationship? 'Cause that's a very personal.
I don't
Like
think
touching
they really
someone's
agreed
face
to.
like that?
He tried to run her over in the Tesla.
Right. So I guess that makes sense that he touched her face. Then. It's very intimate to touch someone's face like that. But anyway, touches her face. Immediately, she's like, I don't feel so good. And then he's like, that's because I've poisoned you. I am evil.
Evil.
Yeah. And then we're like, oh gosh, he poisoned Rene Picard. He succeeded. The stakes are so high right now. But anyway, no.
Oh, I didn't do any
Rios
more
is
shots
happy.
of the drones, but just a shot of Rios being happy.
He succeeded in destroying the drones, which there was no stakes there either. I never felt, there was never even really a shot where the drones were super close to the rocket taking off and like one was about to hit it and then boom, they were like over a random field when they blew up. Like, I don't even think they were that close. So the stakes didn't feel high there, but Rios, let's for one more moment see how happy he was. He was really happy. So then it's
Picard finds her,
but I already knew who it was, and I think you did too.
yeah, but here
we
I
already
figured
kind
it
of
out
figured
because
it
of
out.
that stuff, but I didn't in the previous scene.
Yeah, so Picard is with Rene, and we're like, oh, gosh, she's dying still. And I kind of was like, as soon as she said, do you trust me? I was like, she's setting it up to, this is where she's going to sacrifice herself and pretend to be Rene. And anyway, this is what's happening. Picard's kind of comforting her. There's some like good moments here. He says, look up. And she looks up, and as she's dying, she sees the rocket taking off. So this is where she's like, okay, I've been successful in making sure, as the Watcher, Rene was able to do their Europa mission, which was really important to her, I guess, because she let herself die for that whole thing. And then finally she does one of these.
Die.
Like, it's like she's pulling off a mask, like a digital mask, which didn't really need to be done. But anyway, I don't really care about that. And then as you said, she does die. But as she's dying, she's kind of like, it was worth it. But at the same time, I also, again, wasn't really emotionally connected to this character dying because I knew pretty soon after Picard was going to go see, like, he'd be seeing Laris.
And even sort of, what sort of compounded that is that the resolution of their relationship really was more like, and now you're sort of free to
die?
Yeah, or to live your own life, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I guess, so here's, because it's almost like Picard's also thinking, like, goodbye, Laris, too. And at the same time, he at one point was like, you don't have to sacrifice yourself. I won't let you. And she's like, what makes you think you can control what I do? And it's kind of like, good point. I mean, Picard, like, if this is her...
But she didn't need to sacrifice herself. They could have just... There's a million
Well, yeah,
ways
so
they could
his
have
better
stopped him.
advice to her wouldn't have been like, I won't let you. He should have said, you have future tech. Adam Sung's an idiot.
Let's just beam him out.
Beam him somewhere or, like, trip him in the hallway. And he's foiled. He's foiled.
Anyway.
So she dies. Oops, we've done a thing.
All right,
so there he is,
so
angry
Adam Sung's
again.
back at his lair. They've Rios and group have already left.
Yeah, so that's the other thing we talked about with this show is that people are constantly one location, then the next, then the next. They're moving around all the time.
Crazy.
So, transporter pens. So he's there, and what does he see on telly?
Rene Bakar has completed the mission.
And he's like, what? I just
Or
killed her
she
with
started the
my
mission.
hand in the hallway.
I mean, and he doesn't really know anything about Laris or Talon. Or
We assume.
because there's no reason to know he knows about her.
Right.
Let alone the technology she has to look like another person that way.
Right.
So he's completely
This moment
dumbfounded.
must
He
be
doesn't
really
have any idea
confusing.
what's going on.
Which I guess is probably why he smashed everything in his lab. We don't see it in this shot, but he did smash everything. Like the lab is all smashed up.
In addition to that, stuff starts deleting on his computer.
Yeah, so then he's like, so he's already ticked off because he's like, well, I didn't stop the the Europa mission, which we also talked about. Like, why was stopping that mission so important to him? The mission was given to him originally by Q to try to, do this. Then by
And his motivation was to save Corey, his daughter,
originally,
because to get the science. So
then he turns out
that
he
actually
hates
made
her.
sense of the motivation. Yeah.
So then he's got then he's just dead set on this because he's like, well, someone told me, didn't they say like the future would be better if he did it with him or something?
Yeah, there's some Q suggests, and then the Borg Queen more defines, but really vaguely that like if he stops the Europa mission, the future's.
But part of to me
better.
what made it lose weight, this whole thing, was that we know as an audience that the Borg Queen and Q no longer care about this anymore. They don't care about
Well, that's the
stopping
thing,
the
is
Europa
that
mission.
his entire motivation is just sort of like lazy or awkward descriptions from the Q and the Borg Queen, but both of them by this point, or at least by the end of this episode, or in the Q and Borg Queen from the previous episode, had already resolved and were kind of good guys now. Why didn't they just go back to Adam Sung and say, like, actually, that didn't make any sense, obviously.
Please stop now, Adam.
You don't need to worry about it.
You're being too evil villain. We didn't want to create an evil villain. We feel bad. Please
But
stop.
anyway, it doesn't matter because that's already resolved now.
It's already resolved, but he's
Like,
angry.
He's done with being.
So stuff starts deleting. Open a book. So suddenly we see Corey in a library with, I guess, a borrowed Google Glass headset thing. Yeah, do the thing.
Or you were doing it better.
Okay, so she's doing the So she's in this virtual world, which she's borrowed from the library.
What was that Philip K. Dick movie?
I don't know.
The Majority Report.
Okay. Oh yeah. But there's so many like sci-fi when they like go to the future and they want to show off their kind of ability to like.
Well, I think that was the first one. That was a pretty early version of that technology.
Oh, good. Yeah. So anyway, it just she's sitting on the floor too between like two aisles of books. And nobody, like this guy in the background who's on a computer is just like not paying attention to like, like it would have been funny if he came up and was like, are you deleting someone's files? Because I know when people do that, you're deleting stop deleting someone's files.
Have you hacked into someone's files?
Have you hacked someone? You have that look in your eye like you've hacked someone. Because that's the other thing. Is it that easy to hack into this like, guy's lab and delete his files? Anyway, it is.
He doesn't have
that
backups
easy.
in the cloud?
It is that easy. And she does. And he looks defeated because he's like, and anyway, so the files are gone, and you think like, oh, and she leaves him a little voice message as well, saying like, Father, this is for my sisters or something, and she's probably right as rain, thinking I've taken care of this guy, but did she? No, because he's got a file folder on his desk.
Files. So just to
look at the framing on the file. It's like a Manila file folder thing, but look at the sides are like this like Star Trek-y looking red.
Alert.
Yeah, like it looks like it's.
So it's Project Con. So he's going to start the eugenics war. So one sort of Trek lore of note is
confidential.
It's confidential funding report, and it says 1996. Now, 1996 was sort of the original date of the eugenics war, and sort of a computer readout back in Space Seed, the first episode with Khan.
Right.
And there's been a lot of speculation over Star Trek retcon, trying to make time make sense as more time back in time has introduced what's been going on. That the eugenics war must have happened later. And meanwhile, I did already see the first episode was also today of Star Trek of Strange New Worlds. And
yeah, we're going to review that, by the way.
Yeah, I hope so. And Pike clarifies in that finally, which has been, people have speculated for a while, that the eugenics war and World War III are the same thing, or at least eugenics war leads into World War III, which then leads into First Contact. So that sort of time frame has now been solidly established. And there's also her character, they didn't reveal that much about her backstory, but she'll be explored more. But there's a character called Juan or something Noonien Soon.
Okay.
And Noonien Singh, not Soon.
Well, that's going to be confusing.
It is confusing. Anyway, that we're going to explore the Khan and the eugenics war probably more from that perspective in Strange New Worlds. But that's what's starting here, the eugenics war into World War III.
Yeah, but then it's just kind of tagged onto this episode when let's again remember how defeated he was.
And we already said that. We already knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Like that there would be a connection to that. And then it's Adam Sung, which again I think could have been, didn't have to be a Sung, didn't have to be. I don't know.
I'm okay with
Brent Spiner and stuff, I guess. So anyway, Project Con. Then we're back with Corey.
Yeah. So how are we going to wrap up Corey's?
How are we going to wrap her character
in
up?
like 30 seconds? Because there's not much time.
So have a cryptic message appear on her laptop, not her Google Glass, because the audience wouldn't have seen that. Even though she's like logged into that, but she logs out to open a laptop. And what is this? Curious what's next? Watch and observe. 460 Lowry. I want to go. Let's go to that address and see if we meet.
Or at least you could
see
check
if
it
we
out
meet
on Google.
Who would we meet? We would meet Wil Wheaton.
Look how happy he looks.
Do you think if we go to that address, he's going to show up like this and tell us we can become travelers?
I think there's some time of the year every year.
He's like
could figure it out.
What are those beetles that only like come out like once
cicadas?
Cicadas. Yeah, he's like that. If you find the right like time
cycle?
and the right moment, the right cycle,
right
you get to meet Wil Wheaton at this address.
So he clarifies that the travelers and the watchers are all the same thing as supervisors, which is the new term he used. And that's what he's been. He's been a traveler / watcher, and the watchers. And we already kind of knew that watchers were traveling through time a little bit because Gary Seven knew about the future and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it sort of makes sense. It goes all together. And he's like, "Hey, you want to become a watcher / traveler with me?"
And he kind of says, it'll fulfill your life, but I can't guarantee you'll live. And then doesn't she say something like, well, I wasn't guaranteed I'd live. Well, actually, which I guess
I've been afraid of my life. I've been afraid of dying my entire life. And he also says your other option is just to have a normal life, which would be hard for her at this point.
It's kind of like the red pill, blue pill thing.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
do you want to know about the world of the travelers? But I mean, look at his. How, with a guy that's this happy, are you going to turn down that option? Like, if anyone approaches me this happy and says, I have, like,
come with me, you're special.
Yeah, I'd be like, obviously I'm going to. Actually,
if it's Wil Wheaton.
But at the same time, someone that happy might be suspicious too.
Yeah.
And I think she kind of at one point says, what is this, your recruit? Is this you recruiting me or something?
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, no, this was me recruiting you. Anyway, he does recruit her.
And so what was crazy about that, though, is that her character has never met Picard or any of the other characters.
Yeah, she's a completely standalone character.
She sort of communicated with Q, and Q left a computer message for him. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a separate, encapsulated character. It's really bizarre.
It is, and it again begs the question, like, so when you've written in a season and you have a character who never interacts with your main cast, was that character necessary? I don't have the answer. Wil Wheaton probably does.
It's unknowable.
It's unknowable. So she goes off with Wil Wheaton, which again, like I think you mentioned this, but like it was a great cameo. Bring him.
Yeah, I like Wil Wheaton.
Have him.
He's having fun
more often.
And I mean, how else are you going to wrap up something that fast?
Well, you're going to wrap it up by having them be happy as a couple now.
So this
it seems that Seven has accepted her implant being back. Even though again we talked about the last. Oh, that's you. I tried to cut to me and it's you. It's but you can see my finger pointing. Even on the last episode we talked about how the nanoprobes were like connected to her stomach, but then the injury was the stomach. So it would have made maybe a little more sense if the injury was like to the face, and then when they fixed it. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, let's not worry.
She's good now, and they're kind of wrapping their situation up as like, what does she say? Like, just don't.
Well, she says like you no longer need to sort of run from being a Borg by being a Fenris Ranger. You can sort of stop and come home.
Yeah. So I mean, we're setting them up to be happy and
yeah, the couple. And to be honest, I didn't mind those two in this season. They were sort of the comic relief.
We talked about that, yeah.
But I didn't mind them. Like, I like their dynamic. I think they're great actors.
Yeah.
I feel like their arcs were a little dry and not much to do with it, but I actually like their role in the season.
Well, there just was never, again, nothing in the show, nothing in the season had stakes. So even their relationship, I never felt like there was a moment where I was like, they're not going to be together. One of them doesn't like the other one, or it just never felt like that. It never felt like there were stakes for that. And again, because they were comic relief, there was never a lot of weight to like when we'd see them, the stuff that they did, and like it just never felt even though one of them like almost died. Like when you think back to the season, like Seven was stabbed in the stomach and was dying. But even with that having happened, I'm not thinking about the season going like, oh yeah, like it really felt like that was dramatic and we almost lost. Like I don't know. I just never. Maybe it's because I knew that we weren't going to lose her in that moment, or I guess I didn't really know that. But I don't know. I don't know really what the mistakes are. All the mistakes the writers made. I just know that I wasn't really super connected to all this. And I was going to say, so I've seen a lot of hate in different review channels on different characters and saying like, oh, these characters are just so bad. And I wanted to say, and I said this before too, that like Raffi, I think the biggest problem with that character is the writing. I think the actress has done a good job. I just think that they didn't give her a lot to work with. But I'd like to see that character. And again, in a season where
part of the reason been so frustrated sort of with this season is I really do like the characters and I really like the actors. I think the actors are all really good. They're sort of a new type of actor we haven't really, or a new type of characters in acting that we haven't really seen.
Yeah, it's not your typical, because Raffi's kind of like a maverick who doesn't play by the book and, does her own thing. Like, we've seen, I guess, kind of characters like that, but I think people have always talked about with TNG anyway, and even the original series, I guess, to some degree, and some of the other series as well, that some of the characters in space are like almost too perfect. Like they're all kind of like not as flawed as like people are.
And Gene Roddenberry used to say that like this is the 24th century at the in the first couple seasons of TNG, and that characters don't have conflict.
Right, which I get it, and part of me liked TNG.
Yeah, and part of I did
for that
like
reason.
That,
but at the same time, like I don't mind if the writers are going to be like, well, let's have characters with a little more dynamic, like Raffi. But again, I just don't think she had a lot to work with. And then also, like again, you're in a season where they're trying to do too much, and then they throw you in as a character, and they're like, yeah, hopefully people will like you. And it's like, well, it's going to be hard when you've just thrown characters at us like this. But anyway, so one of the other wrap up things is. And it's a big thing. This is a big kind of story arc coming to a conclusion. Is that Picard was confronted with his childhood and how a decision he made
led to his mother's
suicide, or at least he saw it that way.
And he left the sort of it's both the literal key and the symbolic key to making that happen.
Yeah. So he had this hidden key that would open a door that his mother. It was the door she ended up being. Some of that doesn't make sense either. Like why? Who?
Yeah, we covered that in the last episode.
And did he get the key? Now it begs the question: did Picard leaving the key actually create the situation where he killed his mother, or like his mother died? You know what I mean? If he didn't leave the key here then,
but that's the key. Is that he's accepted that loop that he's got to.
Anyway, yeah, that's the point. The point is he's accepted it. He's not trying to run from what happened. He puts the key in. He seals it up really badly. That was another point I made. Is like 300 years that brick never fell out, or no one pulled it out and said, "Oh, a key." No, we have to leave it for Picard, as well as those like people who are cemented into the wall. Don't touch. Yeah, maybe there was like some weird myth around like don't touch anything down there because there's people in the walls. So yeah, he puts that in there, and he's accepted it, and we find out that was part of what Q was doing.
Say that you left for the boy to find. Bravo, you left for the boy to find.
Right. So Q is happy with the resolved. The resolution
so they sort of
him.
Sell that as the big resolution of the loop. That because remember when we first saw Q talking to Picard in like the second episode, he had all these challenges about like you need to resolve this thing for you, and that's apparently this is what he was referring to.
Right. So then kind of becomes Picard being like, why do you care so much about me? Like, why did you focus on basically trying to help me resolve a problem I had with my past? And
getting me run over with a
Tesla. Why did you get me run over by a Tesla? And then Q's like, I did. So then he kind of cradles his face here.
Like, and you matter to me.
In this very moment, I was like, no, that's how people kill in this show. They touch your face and they poison you. No, I didn't actually think that's what was happening, but it is kind of funny. So he does this and says, yeah, you say, what is it?
You matter to me.
Right.
And to be honest, like I do really like these scenes. I really like the Picard. I really like Q. I really love Patrick Stewart and John DeLacy. I think that they're like it's a dynamic. As a big fan of the show from the start, this is a really important dynamic to these characters. And as viewers of Star Trek, of old Star Trek: The Next Generation, this is huge. This is something we've been waiting for.
This has gravity.
This is gravity, and we've always we knew that they had we knew that Q always really cared about Picard on some level, and this is a resolution we really
even
wanted
from the
to
very
see.
first episode that Q was in. Was that the first time you called him Mon Capitaine? Was it right away?
Yeah, in the first episode.
Like it was a playful relationship, and it was a He was intrigued by humans, specifically Picard. Picard had this resolve that I think really like spoke to Q for some reason, because he was like this all-powerful being that was like, this guy's like got integrity. I feel like that was his first thought. This guy's got integrity.
You've got potential.
He's got potential for me to, like, in the future, help him with his mother problems. But no, you're right, though. It was a great scene, and one of the biggest complaints through the whole season was we needed more Q. We needed more of these types of scenes. They could have teased it a little bit. I feel like Q should have been in each episode. Maybe not one. Like, if he hadn't been in maybe one, maybe I would have been okay with that. He should have been one of the main characters. He really wasn't. Like, he was in theory, but as far as how much screen time he got, like, I don't know. It didn't feel like much.
No, they haven't met since very early on.
Yeah.
Because the last time we actually saw Q was with Guinan in a few episodes ago.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he was in some of the episodes, but he wasn't interacting with Picard, and that's the interesting thing. That's why he even did all this. Like, Picard asks, "Why me?" And he's like, "Because I find you interesting. Because I like you." Or I don't know if that's exactly what he said. I'm going to cut to this and just go turn that camera back on. We'll fix that next episode. But yeah, so this scene was it was quite nice, actually.
Yeah, I really like the scene, but we missed having more of it throughout the season.
There was other characters that we were like should be on camera more.
Well, the other characters I think we really should have seen a lot more was Rene Bakar. So she was so important to the end, but we barely see her. The only time we really explored her character was that sort of hilarious John DeLacy Q as a Freud accent. Then we learned about her sort of insecurities and stuff, which I think was sort of the basis for an interesting character, but we never really explored that at all.
Right. No, 100% agree. There was a few characters that would have really benefited the show. Characters that I was intrigued by, that I wanted to know more about. I mean, obviously Q, like, I know a lot about, but I wanted to know. I mean, actually, but I didn't know this Q. I didn't know a dying Q, and we still didn't really get much out of that either, right? Like a Q that's dying, that's really super interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Like, there's so many sort of interesting concepts and ideas that could come from that, and they touched on it so fleetingly in that scene with Guinan. But
yeah,
I'm really disappointed not to have dealt more with that and understand that more, and that's was sort of a bittersweet aspect of these sort of final scenes.
No, 100%. So anyway, that was one of the reasons. I think that would have strengthened the season for sure, because they set it up as to be like, this is about Q testing Picard again, maybe one last time. And then anyway, but this, like you said, this scene was good. It made me like this episode more. Those were the scenes that did make me like this episode more. One of the things I also said, though, is that I think partially why, if I was someone watching this show and had never seen TNG, had never seen any other Star Trek, it might not have had the weight to it that I personally felt. So I think a lot of it was nostalgia, and I think a lot of it was, because I knew these characters. So does that mean maybe that it was successful for me because of nostalgia, and it wouldn't have been successful? I'd like to know if someone watched the show. I have
the same feeling. My favorite
Let me know.
My absolute favorite parts, the parts I liked from the first season, were the scenes with that episode with Riker and with Troy, and then the scene in the last episode with Data, where they sort of resolve his death again. Just like the parts I liked in this season was the parts where we were Picard with Guinan or Picard with Q, or.
But is it wrong? Because the thing is, when a show becomes successful, part of why it becomes successful is because people like the characters. Is it wrong to like seeing characters that you already like? That so it's a mix of nostalgia, but they're well established, strong characters. And I don't know, is that wrong? No, it isn't. That's the answer.
No, I don't. I think that's a good thing. I just wish that wasn't the only thing I liked about.
Yeah, no, I get you. So then again, Q is kind of I forget some of the dialogue, but he's basically saying it's because you're special to me. Oh, he says even gods have a favorite.
Yeah. Or
even gods have favorites or something like that. Which, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, cool. Like, certainly Picard was one of his favorites, and again, it just feels like too little too late. I just wish the rest of the season was more of that. So anyway, they go outside. It was kind of funny how once they're outside, Picard and Q were just together. And
so Picard and are just together.
They literally were just together.
Observatory / solarium.
Yeah.
Picard leaves to go, because they were just in the main sort of room of the manor.
Right.
And Picard goes to talk to them and says, like, okay, we've got something to do now. We're going to resolve this. They leave to go to this spot, which we've seen before.
Like, assuming they leave together.
They all leave together. So Q must have left out the other way from a different door
Yeah.
and ran into the woods so that he could come back in and then
Yeah,
come
because he
out.
comes a different direction. And I like to think of this. You know how when you're like at the mall or something and you see a friend and you're like, well, it's good talking to you, and you both go the same direction, and then it's awkward because you're like,
You tried to do a bye and then like
yeah, you said goodbye, but then you go the same way they went. And then sometimes you almost want to like walk the other way because you just don't want to deal with that. Like, well, now what do I say? Like hi again, or do we keep talking?
Yeah.
So I kind of
We've already
like
done the bye.
I like to think that that's what happened. And then so they were like, let's just go separate ways because we said bye anyway. So Raffi gets ticked off because he kind of seems to be talking about Elnor like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so she seems to still blame him for Elnor awkwardly.
And then that passes quickly, even though she grabs him by the throat. Really, in a really weak way, though. Like, there's no way that the way she grabs him would have hurt him ever at all, because he also has, like, a giant, thick collar on. He basically has a shirt that protects him from being choked. So, well, is that the next? Okay. Well, so it's basically wrapping up. We get another scene with Picard and Q, where it's dealing a little more with Q this time. Not so much about, like, Picard's past and whatever, but now they're kind of talking about, okay, I am dying. I can. Oh, and that's why Raffi lets him go. I remembered now because he says like I can send you guys home, right? And then she's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't mess
So
with you.
exactly what we and I think Max said too, that she was going to sacrifice himself to save them, send them back in time.
Yes.
Since the ship's gone now arbitrarily.
It was one of the major predictions. Yeah, that I think most people probably knew that was coming. We knew Q was dying. He needs to have meaning to his life. He's going to sacrifice himself. So he does a thing where he's like, I have enough magic left in me.
But at the start,
but
of
it
the,
will
at
kill
the
me
start
when
of
I
the
use
season,
it.
he seemed to have a lot more We don't
Did
really.
he?
Yeah, he did the whole thing where they went to another universe.
Oh, no, he didn't do that.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did the whole universe thing. Yeah, he did do that. Yeah.
We don't really know why he's dying either.
Well, and we discussed that we don't know enough about Q. We don't know, like, just
Which I'm okay. Like,
He's
it's
back
not that I
again.
need to know; is that I needs to care.
I needs to care. I want a shirt that
Right,
says
but-
that.
So, in addition to this dynamic, someone's staying behind.
Oh, someone's staying behind? No way. Nobody could have predicted that with
Other than the exposition in the
the
previous
beautiful
episode.
doctor that he's starting to get to know. So Rios decides to stay on Earth, and because he's in love. And Picard says, "What about the timeline?" And he's like,
I was always meant.
"But
to.
love." And Picard's like, "But the timeline." And he says, "But love." And then Picard goes, "Love." And then they hug. No, they don't hug. Someone else does. But yeah, so he's got his cigar, which is something that comes up later. Kind of. He always has his cigar. But he's going to stay
classic
behind.
Rios.
He's going to stay behind. And then Q is like, "Well, that gives me a little extra magic to give you a little treat."
Yeah, so I
they're like,
remember
"What?"
thinking that, and I remember thinking that Q might have lived, because if he has a little extra magic left, maybe that's enough that he doesn't have to die by doing this last.
Oh, Mac just said something interesting. And we actually talked about that. Were you just saying that? Because you thought he lived, and then you're like, he has a little extra magic.
That's
And
what I
then-
thought at this point. 'cause
Well,
he
Mac's
said-
saying that there's some evidence that maybe he's in season 3, so maybe he didn't end up dying, which
Well-
I would like actually.
Well, yeah, there's room for that because of that, and we don't see him die. So he's not dead if you don't see him die. I don't think that's the rules, right? Or at least
No, we're playing into like what writers want, which is like we're making an assumption based on like kind of what he said. Oh, I'm sick and dying. Oh, I only have enough magic for this, and I'm like, oh, he died, and then they'll surprise us when he's there. Like, no, you're right.
But
He's
it's
probably
too
not
big.
dead.
Q dying is too big of an event to not see somehow.
Oh, I wouldn't
or
worry about that.
explore.
I don't think the writers would care about like focusing on it in a way that it deserves because they haven't done that a lot.
Sure.
But anyway, so this was a sweet moment. They end up hugging. And for me, it holds the weight of not only being the potential goodbye of two characters, but also just two actors who have worked together in their younger years, probably have respect for each other. I don't know and a lot about, were they friends in real life? Did they? I don't know, but I'm going to pretend they were, and they went dirt biking. And in this moment, it's a nice moment. I thought it was really.
Yeah,
I was
thought-
emotional,
that was
and I don't
huge.
get emotional.
As a fan of Picard and Q, that's the great moment. Another great moment.
Yeah.
And then he snaps his hand.
Oh, interesting. So Mac always says good stuff. So he's saying that maybe he thought he was dying, and somehow the Picard mission saved him. Maybe like the Q.
Well, that would be a really interesting payoff if that was explored.
Right, that like somehow him helping humanity helped himself. Or maybe the hug from Picard cured him.
Of
It looks
cancer.
like a curing hug. Keeping in mind that this isn't actually Picard; it's an android version of. But anyway,
No,
that doesn't matter.
it's not even an Android version. It's an alternate universe Android version of Picard.
Holy macaroni!
But presumably they're all back in their original bodies now after the snap.
Max said maybe season 3 is Picard season 3, The Search for Q. Let's do it.
I enjoy that. I actually think Q's a fantastic character, and this leaves me wanting to see more of him.
Yeah, no, I really do hope that he's in the next season. And they're searching for him, and then all of a sudden they hear, and they're like, oh, follow the sound. So that kind of wrapped that up, and he was like, I can send you home. I have a little bit of extra power to do something else. No, it was beautiful. It honestly was. So here we are home, suddenly back to how the season began. Big, creepy Borg ship that looks like a burdock. You know what burdocks are? You know what I mean when I say burdock?
I do not.
No, the things that attach to you when you're walking through the woods.
Oh, okay.
And they stick to your pants and everything.
Yeah, those sort of seed husk.
So I'm coining that one. This is this is me. Space burdock. Anyway, big Borg ship. Who could be on the ship? Who's the big Borg queen? Well, we already know, but anyway.
It's Agnes.
Is it a bad Borg thing? Is it bad? What is it doing? And then it's Agnes.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, so Picard is on the bridge, and he shuts down the destruct sequence, which he had started in the beginning of the episode because they were like, we need to stop the Borg from taking over the ship.
Everything.
And in this moment, he says, turn off the self-destruct sequence. He's hearing the...
Yeah, which, again, the music was confusing to me because I remember the music happening in the first episode, but it wasn't clear to me that the Borg was playing that.
Well, you said you thought it was in his head or something. I thought it was actually playing on the ship.
Oh yeah, I think they do kind of clarify that.
But in this moment, Picard seems to suggest that Agnes knew
about that
playing
song.
that song would affect him in a way that it. But my problem.
So playing that song, not saying something, not communicating directly with the ships that she's trying to assimilate aggressively.
Right.
Playing a song.
That was the right choice. But the thing again. So to your point, until Picard went to an alternate universe to realize the Borg Queen was Girardi, the song didn't mean anything to him. He still had the self-destruct sequence going. It's not like he was like, oh wait, the song, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't matter at all until he was like, oh, it mattered. It didn't matter till it mattered. Anyway, there she is.
I mean, so we both had the same reaction, is that she looks really weird.
She looks really weird. It felt almost like it was CG makeup or something.
Yeah, it didn't seem right. It didn't seem like... I was surprised by their choices for the makeup, and it didn't seem like it's natural.
Part of the makeup on the top part of the forehead looks almost like fine hairs. It just...
Yeah, she had this weird, texturized lines on the side of her face.
Yeah.
Which is sort of similar to something the Borg Queen needs to have. I think they're trying to make her look older in a way that... Because she has a very young looking face, so they're trying to do that.
Yeah, she does. She has a very young, kind of androgynous, innocent looking face. So, to me, I didn't... And she plays a lot of comedic characters or, characters that are quirky and which she does really well. And a Borg Queen is just such a, But I guess she's not an evil Borg Queen. She's a friendly, helpful
she's a friendly
Borg
Queen.
Max said that Alison Pill is not back for season 3. Just throwing that out there.
So we're not going to explore the Borg anymore.
So we won't. Well, we at least won't explore her being the guardian of the
wormhole.
spatial anomaly thing.
Well, so that's what they're going to throw at this. So there's a reason for all this stuff that is happening, and if the Borg is hearing all that stuff, and it's technobabble, tri-quantum wave, dun 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 dun. Anyway, so they've got to stop the tri-quantum wave suddenly. And there's stakes. There's a planet with an Andorian with millions of lives.
Yeah, so there's this kind of gateway that's opening up, and as it's happening, it's going to release this.
And this happens out of nowhere suddenly.
Yeah, and she couldn't have just showed up on one of the starships and said this in the beginning.
She's got to attack.
She had to stick tentacles as
an aggressive Borg invader.
As an aggressive Borg invader. So, okay. So I'm just cutting away to this. This is important stuff. John Delancey said a year ago that he was filming scenes for season 3. So we do know.
Oh, awesome.
Unless it's a flashback, though. That is possible. That it's not in the present. It's Picard remembering and then being like, oh, but Q told me this one thing that was important. And then it'll flash back to Q being like, don't touch. Why do I always do Picard's voice when I don't touch the thing that's this? And then they'll be like, thank you, Q. Even though he's dead, he's still with us. No, I think he'll probably be in it.
When Picard potentially died in Tapestry, he went to see Q. when Q dies,
he goes to see Picard.
Yep.
No, I hope he's back. I mean, but I hope
Definitely.
but I hope he's not just back. Like again, I mean, they've already filmed it, so I can't like give them tips, and they wouldn't listen anyway. They never listen to me. But like, I just hope they simplify it a bit. Like just,
yeah. Well, it does seem, talking about season 3, it seems like they've wrapped up a lot of these characters so that they can. It seems like they got rid of Rios completely. They got rid of Agnes. It seems like maybe we'll focus more on the old TNG crew. At least that's what.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because everything I liked about the first 2 seasons, the things I liked the most were when they would bring back the old TNG crew.
Yeah, we were saying that.
And I really like. I keep thinking I suck for thinking that. Like, I shouldn't think that because I only think that because nostalgia, blah, blah, blah. But like, yes, but they're trying to do both. So a lot of the new crew and a lot of the new characters, they haven't taken the time to really build them the way that they deserve. So I'd rather, anyway, there's a lot of reasons we could get into that, but
there's a line in it. No, it's in the last scene where they're all together, but Picard basically refers to them as a family, including Guinan too. And I remember just thinking, like, they didn't really develop that.
No, I guess it's just assumed. There's the spatial
event.
Casualty rate 100%.
That is high stakes.
It's such an ambiguous number, though. 100% of what? Like 100% of everyone that gets hit with the beam? 100% of all?
Actually, it's really confusing because they do say you saved millions of lives, and they show, without explaining who they are, a random bunch of people on a planet.
Right.
But they also say, when they first say it, is that it's going to destroy the entire quadrant.
They do say that, yeah.
They say the entire quadrant.
Yeah.
The entire quadrant includes the entire Federation, the entire Bajorans, the entire Cardassians. In theory, the Romulans may be more in the Beta Quadrant. It's not clear whether in the Beta Quadrant or the Alpha Quadrant. But anyway, that's like multiple trillions and trillions and trillions of people. It's the entire quadrant is the entire fourth of the galaxy.
Yeah, that's...
So
it must have some sort of cascade effect, this beam.
But that's not consistent with the way they've talked about it. Which sort of just... That doesn't make the stakes better or worse. It just makes them more confusing and not defined.
That's a good way to define the whole season. Doesn't make it better or worse, just makes it confusing and hard to define.
Yeah.
So Mac was saying Seven and Raffi are back for season 3, and that Mac thinks that season 3 will basically be season 8 of TNG.
That's interesting. Like, for it to be a season 8, I think we'd have to deal a lot more with the original crew. Like,
well, I think that's already pretty obvious
more.
that there will be, because even with the teaser where you hear all their voices.
Yeah, but it's not clear how much if we actually see them as main characters for the all 10 episodes.
I hope we do.
I hope we do too.
That's what I want, because it just, if it ain't broke, don't break it twice. So anyway, here's the thing, and it's a big thing, and it's a big problem thing, and she's like, we need to all work together for this shield thing.
Notice one of the ships looked like a Galaxy class ship. I don't know if you see a good picture.
I do see
that one there.
Well, there's a couple actually.
Yeah, there's a couple.
I can't see where we're pointing.
There's a couple Nebula type. No, they can't. And a couple Nebula class type ships.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole thing is the Borg actually did want to work, obviously, with everyone to create the shield to protect this quadrant from this thing.
They just didn't tell anyone that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's very convenient they brought enough ships to do this shield thing.
Yeah. Yeah. If all the starships hadn't showed up to try to deal with the Borg, like if only like one showed up. Because maybe the Federation was like, well, we're not going to send all our ships. We know what that Borg ship's going to do. We'll just send the one we don't like. Just send the one we don't like. And this poor guy in that one ship going like, why do I have to? It's like the guy on The Simpsons that's like Hans Moleman. Oh, yeah. he's the captain. So Max says their primary cast, the TNG crew, I'm assuming. So I think that's like kind of confirmation that it will be a focus on them and not just kind of like, can you imagine if they just teased us and literally it was like the beginning of one episode, they're like all on the bridge as the old...
They're hanging out on like Guinan's bar.
Like, or something like that. And then literally it just becomes another season like this where it's like, space snakes and another Soong. It's like, I don't know, Brian Soong.
He's really lazy.
He's really lazy.
He gets angry and like he does the same reactions. But
he works at a zoo and he's like experimenting on animals.
Yeah, they've done eugenics. They've done cloned kid
clones.
He's done eugenics. He does androids.
Yeah.
Now he's done
animals.
Zoo animals. As a mad scientist.
And he always shows up on I don't know, what's he ride? A horse? No, he wouldn't ride a horse. He's too eccentric. He's a Soong.
You never seen
Here comes Brian Soong riding a kangaroo. I don't know. This is our second time attempting this episode, so I'm getting a little loopy. So anyway,
Yeah,
they do
we've
the
been here a
shield.
while.
And I remember, like, even when I was watching it, I was like, why is there a hole in front of that dang ship? That's the
Excelsior.
The Excelsior. And I was like, oh, well, it makes sense then. That's so Excelsior to not do their part.
Their shield harmonics aren't
Up to par.
up to par. But it turns out the guy who's in charge of the Excelsior shields,
Is,
Elnor.
yeah, we can kind of
Even
see
though
him
he's a
there.
cadet, so the cadet's in charge of modulating the shields. And on top of that, Raffi was the captain of the Excelsior, or at least a high-ranking commander on the Excelsior. Why'd she suddenly, at the start of it, she just showed up back on the Stargazer?
So she I was going to say transported. She Q-snapped back to where, like, the main crew was, because it made sense to the story for her to be on the ship with Picard. But it made sense for Elnor to be on a different ship so that we could hold off that emotional moment. So suddenly she could then see this on the screen and go, Elnor? And then he's like, Raffi? Like, even though this moment is really dramatic, there's literally like a thing about to shoot a ray of energy and their shield isn't up yet. And they
So
need
he's
to
gotta press the
But
shield
instead
button.
they're like, Raffi? Elnor?
It paid off.
But
Because the last thing Elnor would have remembered was being killed in the mirror in the alternate universe.
the
Anyway, they clarify
hologram version
that
of Elnor remembered it. being
Someone
killed.
mentions that Q uses energy from not having to move Rios in time.
Yeah, so that was like his extra little
Although
gift to
that
them.
introduction was unnecessary because they already sort of talked about that in one of the earlier episodes.
Yeah.
That are we going to be able to see Elnor again when we wrap up the time loop? And it seemed pretty clear to me that was the case. I never thought that wasn't the case.
Well, and so the question becomes, did the writers think that in this moment that the audience would be surprised by seeing Elnor? Like, did the writers really think that we would be like, yeah? That's how I get excited, by the way. Or did they know that we would already predict it and they were just like, well, it's just going to it's supposed to be a moment for Raffi. Which that makes the writers clearly weren't like, it'll be for the character, not for the audience.
We made the show for Raffi.
We made the show for Raffi, not the audience. And now it all makes sense. And I'm going to agree with Mac on that one. Mac just said, can we please stop reusing actors to play completely different parts within the space of a couple episodes? Please. Like, I agree with that. It convolutes, it confuses. Like, it's so hard to connect with. There must be a rule in writing or in casting that's like, don't cast the same person to play a different person in like the run of 3 episodes, because then you're like, you can't connect, because you're like, well, I know and even because we were calling her Laris 2, it already shows that it's kind of failing the audience, because we're naming her anyway. So I agree 100% with that. So there's Elnor, he's back. We knew he would be, but I guess they did it for Raffi. Raffi's happy. I still love in the background of this, just seeing Agnes as the giant Borg Queen cape thing coming. Like, it just, I don't know, in the background.
Well,
just
because we thought when we said that a little bit earlier, the makeup looked so odd. We were speculating that maybe the actor wasn't even there for these scenes, and that she was just digitally added in post.
Well, it was, yeah, because it just looked almost like green screen.
Our shots aren't great, but the line between her face and like the base, like it didn't.
Oh, yeah. Another great comment. I keep like interrupting for comments from Mac.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
Well, he's saying, and also, of course, in the middle of a cataclysmic crisis, they're going to entrust communications and shield work to the cadet.
Yeah, the entire.
Who literally just, I mean, they don't know this, but who literally just came back from death and is like suddenly on a ship going, what the heck's happening?
So presumably somehow when Raffi left the Excelsior, although Q did that somehow, she left the cadet in charge.
But he died.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those. It's happened constantly through the season. There's things that the writers were like, we need to do this.
Yeah, it's all
not
backwards
things that would have
writing.
happened.
There's an in point that makes sense.
Oh yeah, we need to bring
narrative. We need.
You know what the conversation was?
We need Adam Soong to be there, so he has this ability that gets him at that spot.
It literally was. Raffi's been sad the whole. Her whole character arc for this season, we made it about her sadness of Elnor being gone, guilt.
Yeah.
We need to then, on the last episode, have her see that Elnor is alive. How are we going to do that? Well,
on the previous episode, she
can't
sort of
just
came
be-
to terms with it by talking to Hollow Elnor.
But here's the thing. Like, so they were like I can almost picture again. I picture the writers' room all the time. They were like, oh, well, we need to have him show up. Okay, because Q brought him back, and that's going to resolve that. Okay. So he'll show up with them on the bridge then, just like everyone else. And that won't be much of a payoff, because then he'll just be on the bridge and Raffi will be like, oh, Elnor, you're alive. Actually, that might have been nice, because then they could have hugged, and it might have even been like almost like, oh, that. But anyway, so they were like, no, it needs to be a better payoff. We're smart writers. We can do better than that. Let's have him on the other ship, and let's have one ship fail to put the shield up. And then it's Elnor. And that's why he appears on the screen. Because then they were like, well, we need a reason for him to appear on screen. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he's like...
he's the cadet in charge of the shields.
You know, like, it would have been funny if it was like really, really arbitrary, though. Like, he comes on screen. He's just like, any of you guys, like, what are y'all doing after this? Anyway, let's move on. Here they are, defending the galaxy from certain destruction.
From the tri-quantum wave.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, I don't mind this as, like, if this was a TNG episode and they had to work together.
And we actually had an explanation of what this is, why this is, and what the point of this is.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, that could be a thing, that they work together and make one massive shield. We've never seen them.
Which is kind of cool.
Have we ever seen them do anything like this, where they work together
They've
with another
definitely,
ship?
like, done things with other ships to make their shields and use their shields.
They combine tractor beams a lot.
And they've used their shields to, like, interrupt and stop beams of things and bad things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's
a cool image. So anyway, this thing shoots its thing and they stop it. We got 2 shots of that.
Yeah, I think we have a third one even, maybe.
No way.
No.
What the heck is this? Oh, this is the
that's
Andorian.
The planet with the Andorian. We tried to catch the Andorian.
Yeah, there's like one Andorian being like, someone. Oh, and then if you look closely, there's a ship taking off too. And I was saying, that guy's getting the heck out of here. He doesn't trust the Borg and the Federation to work together. So that's that. Well, one more. So there it is. So then she's basically like, there, we did it.
I will enter the Federation and be the Guardians. So this process created some sort of new type of stable transwarp gateway / wormhole.
Yeah. So once that energy was expelled, so we could almost presume that there was someone on the other side using that energy to open this particular. That's my theory.
Yeah, but we don't have any explanation of that. It seems kind of similar to the whole thing at the end in the last episode of the last season. I don't know.
It seems actually really similar to that. Yeah, there was like a giant race of AI that were trying to open a transwarp wormhole, which they were making antennas.
Yeah, they were making antennas to open it, and then they had like a Borg-looking
thing coming through, like tentacles and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it does seem really similar to that, and like,
but confusingly similar. I don't think it is similar. I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's another.
No, thing. I hope it's not. I hope they're not just like, that's the thing from season 1 finally found its way through.
It actually matters now.
One of the things we brought up before that you thought didn't matter, it all matters. They're gonna make sense of it all next season. I have hope. But yeah, so she's like, oh yeah, she does her thing where she goes, she calls him Mister, because that was her thing.
Yeah.
And it was like when she was a human character, and she was interacting with him, it was kind of like endearing. But when you see the Borg Queen kind of smiling and saying, well, we did it, Mister, it's kind of like, it's a Borg Queen. Like, I don't know, like, take it a little more seriously, guys. Like,
and not only that, like,
take yourself seriously, Agnes.
She was aggressively assimilating all the ships.
Well, as soon as she took her cool looking, it's like, I don't know, like a Venom type suit. As soon as it was like, pew, and then she's just like, hey, Mister, I was actually here to help, to stop this from happening, and then stand and guard the gateway. And then again, so we already showed this. Picard was just kind of like, I'm okay with all of this. So yeah. Let's just read this quickly. So Max says, something that bodes well for next season is that the showrunner for Picard left the season about halfway through to work on season 3 and was replaced with Alex Kurtzman. The best part of this season was the first half. After that, it fell apart. Yeah, I agree. With that.
We all both really liked the first 2 episodes and thought that there was a lot of promise there.
Oh, episode 1, I was like, I like this. This is good. This is going to be a good season.
And I even was kind of liking it at episode 3.
Yeah.
Although I see now is the point of it falling apart. But I was having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like that one.
You didn't like it.
But it definitely went downhill though. So I can say it wasn't. I think the worst episodes fell into like the range of like episodes 6, 7, and 8, maybe, or 6, 5, 6, 7, or something. But anyway.
Yeah, the middle.
The middle, and then the end, and then it just fell apart completely. I still love seeing Patrick Stewart make these faces. I love seeing him act. I love seeing him on camera. I'm such a huge fan. I love the character of Captain Picard. They didn't do it justice, but he was still on camera. I'm happy about that. And yeah, so he's happy with the Borg. Oh, right. So
we have sort
then
of a
we have
wrap-up
another
party.
wrap up.
We see Guinan again. She spends most of her time just doing awkward exposition about just saying, "Oh, I
couldn't
didn't
tell
tell
you."
you about the whole thing about the time because reasons that you weren't supposed to know yet. Time loop." Which isn't necessary.
kind of a Guinan
I said that
thing.
poorly, but anyway, that's not necessary for Guinan to even say.
No, and there was so many things. Again, one more time, I'm saying it. There was so many. That's a great example of so many things that happened in the season that someone would say something or do something. It just wasn't necessary. They could have completely removed it. It wouldn't have hurt it.
And then they needed characters to spend time flatly explaining exposition for how that happened.
Right. And
to
if you're
wrap it
doing
up.
that, if you're writing and you find yourself saying, "Now we need a character to explain what just happened," you've failed. You have failed, sir. So anyway, but I like the scene actually. I like
Guinan.
You know,
We
well,
like
of course.
Guinan, yeah.
She points out that this photo, she's had this photo on her wall in the bar, and assuming that she had it on the wall in the bar when Picard came in at episode 1, and just didn't pick up on the fact that this is Rios. And there's actually something about this that I really like. It actually, now, very, very, in a very small way, it had this feeling of the inner light, of the fact that like he knew Rios in the past, they just knew him, and now they're seeing on the wall and hearing from Guinan that he lived this
right
life.
That sort of reflection back on an entire
And
life.
for
in an
Picard,
instant.
yeah, exactly. In an instant, he can say what was his life like. And to me, that's kind of, there's something about that that's very poetic, which is why I think the Inner Light was not only, in my opinion, the best episode of TNG, and I know there's some really great ones, but for me, the best episode of TNG.
That's a controversial opinion.
And one of the best, really, one of the best episodes of television though ever. And I'm including Survivor.
I'm including Law and Order.
and what's the American Idol? I was trying to think of the stupid shows. I was trying to think of stupid shows. So anyway, so that was on the wall, and I actually thought that was kind of to think that he had lived this life.
His last breath was blown into.
Yeah, well, we should say that too.
A cigar.
But it kind of shows that sometimes the most beautiful things are the things that the audience can almost create on their own based on just a little amount of information. Not too much information, but just a small amount of information. So anyway,
although there's another thing we really should
go plug these back in.
Another thing we really should mention is that sort of we know it's all off screen. We don't see any of it, but something really important has happened here. Back in time, we learn just from this exposition that Rene, because what the entire point of this entire season was that Rene, during the Europa mission at Europa, found some new alien life. I assume some sort of like amoeba or small type of life that helped the kid, the cake kid,
you keep calling
the son, invent some way of solving global warming.
Yeah, which stopped the Earth from becoming evil people.
Which stopped the Earth becoming evil people, although in the middle of that there's a eugenics war in World War III and Civil War. But whatever.
We can handle that, but what we can't handle is Picard being evil and killing all these other. He literally in his, like, if we remember back to the season, he had like heads of different alien races.
Yeah, and they were like, it was like Ducat and.
Yeah, he wasn't just like, Picard didn't just turn into kind of like, he's not as good. No, it was like full on beheading like everyone
and
he met, basically.
If Rene hadn't have found that alien,
right,
and that the cake kid hadn't invented that stuff, that's what would have happened. So that's the entire time loop, though.
And if he hadn't eaten that cake from the replicator, he wouldn't have done it either.
Well, presumably it's butterflies.
No, it was about the cake. It was just about the cake. But no, so that kind of, because I asked you even when I came for us to do this today, and I was kind of like, so what then created the evil timeline? And you were like, well, presumably it was then if that child hadn't. So basically, and this was a cool thing. If I didn't even pick up on this really.
No, it happened entirely off screen.
If Rios hadn't fallen in love with a woman from the past, then the future wouldn't have been saved.
Presumably.
Ish.
Like the kid was born without Rios, but presumably Rios does guide him in his direction as becoming this scientist who does all that stuff.
So what this teaches us is, if you're watching and you figure out how to time travel, don't worry about messing up timelines. Go fall in love with people in the past, because you're going to be saving the universe.
But keep in mind, usually falling in love with people in the past does not end out well.
The answer to that is no, it does, Tim. It does, every time.
Not in all Star Trek episodes.
But anyway, so there's that photo. I thought it was cool. Oh yeah, so we did want to say, so Picard's like, I think this is one of those things that, like, I don't know if you would ask this about someone that you cared so much about, but he's basically like, how did they die? So Guinan says, well, Says her name. I still don't remember. I think she says actually the doctor died of old age. No, not the doctor.
Yeah, I still don't remember her name.
But anyway, she died of old age, and Rios died in a bar fight.
In Morocco.
And his last breath was blowing into a cigar.
Which isn't how
Not
cigars work.
inhaling, but he was. So I guess he was like shot and then like.
How do you blow into a cigar?
That's my example of what he did.
And one thing that was cool about this sequence here too is that they'd sort of had the TNG soundtrack at the end of the high climax of the last scene and into this scene, and then they shifted to the Generations theme song around here. And then
I did. Like after you mentioned that, I picked up on that.
And it sort of ends into the Picard theme song. I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, he finds that out that Rios. And so the one thing I was thinking too is they kind of when he finds that out, Guinan almost talks about it in a way like he went out like he lived and stuff. And I'm like, he had he was in love. He probably had a lot going on for him, and he died in a bar fight. Like that's a terrible way to die. He was clearly making bad decisions.
But it was over medical supplies.
Yeah, but like if someone's like, hey, I shoot you, and then he just is kind of like, I have no idea. He shouldn't have died in a bar. No.
And it sounded like he was really old too.
Plus, she said he died like he lived, or whatever, a line like that. I don't remember seeing him fight anyone. He wasn't like a scrappy guy. He just smoked cigars.
Yeah, no.
I guess it's implied if you smoke cigars that you get in bar fights. Anyway, so there they are again. I loved, any conversation between Guinan and Picard. It always feels. And I said too, like I do think that the woman who played young Guinan did an okay job. At first I was like, that's not Guinan at all. It got a little better, but there's just Guinan plays it. It's almost like someone playing a young John Malkovich playing a character. John Malkovich is so unique and interesting the way he plays characters, and Whoopi Goldberg's the same way. She's just so Whoopi Goldberg. Like it's really hard to have someone do her. Although it's funny that the child who played young Whoopi Goldberg in the TNG episode where they were kids actually did a really good job of like being like Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, she did too. They both did.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that, and then they're all like, they get Elnor to do a shot. See, I would have liked stuff more like this, and I think part of what makes TNG so good, and some of the originals or the older Treks, is that they deal a lot with people just hanging out doing stuff. It's not always like a spatial thing blew up and blah blah blah. Like that does happen.
Point. If you
you get to know them just on a like personal level,
That's if you just sort of watch a random scene of the Next Generation and a random scene of the Next Generation, a random scene of Star Trek Picard. They're so different in tone. Next Generation was just so slow. Characters took time to come into a room, sit down, and have a discussion about everything, and that was what the show was. They usually trying to argue about technobabble or diplomacy or prime directives.
Yeah, they were figuring stuff out because they knew each other.
And through that, we sort of really got time to explore characters. Whereas the way Picard was done, everything was just... I guess they were trying to be more action-packed.
Someone was always running somewhere.
There wasn't a climax that wasn't edited in with another climax back and forth.
Yeah.
And
then wrapping up how many characters in total? We should have... But, I mean, it's like 8 or 9. Like, there's a lot of characters that were... And they weren't even, like... And again... I think the thing about episodic television is that you also got this thing where like there was a lot of crew on the Enterprise who, and same with Deep Space Nine, same with like a lot of these Treks had a lot of cast, large casts, but because it was episodic, like one episode would feature that one cast member or two. So you'd get like a Quark episode, or you'd get like in TNG, you'd get like
an A plot and a B plot, and
you could easily follow it, but it dealt with some really cool stuff. So Mac was just saying that overall, he enjoyed the season and most of every episode because he could suspend his disbelief to an extent. What he found frustrating was that it could have been much better. That he thought the premise was good, there were some great moments, but the pacing was off in a lot of places, and the biggest issue for him was that it focused on bits that were irrelevant and glossed over really important stuff, which it's pretty much what we're saying, except for the fact that I didn't enjoy the season overall, but I can see how, like, if you could suspend your disbelief and
I feel like if we watched Picard without doing this type of YouTube show, without being trying to be so critical on some level, if we watched the show a lot more casually, and it's not, even if I didn't do this YouTube show, I'd be critical because I'd be thinking about stuff, but if we didn't think about stuff and just sort of randomly watched an episode once a week,
I still wouldn't have liked it, but like maybe you're right.
Fair.
No, I mean, like, and again, I don't dislike it on, like, no, I just, yeah. But I mean, I get, how someone could like it, and I'm not going to, I think if you do, you do. And there's a lot of great characters and a lot of great potential.
Like I keep saying, I like the characters, so many potentials, then there's a lot of things I do like.
I would agree on that level with what Mac's saying. Like, I just think they could have really executed stuff better.
So I have a question. Is that Romulan ale?
I assumed it was Romulan ale.
I assumed it was Romulan ale,
but then you were like, well, that'd be really mean to do. But I was like, well, he is Romulan.
Yeah.
But he clearly has never had it before.
The implication is that Romulan ale is really strong. Although every type of liquor that's a hard liquor,
Klingon blood wine,
that's at least 80 proof, is really strong. So everyone talks about strong. So maybe
it didn't like immediately kill him. That would have been. Can you imagine? Like Raffi's just like, "Yay, you're back," and they're like, give him some really strong stuff, and he's like, I didn't tell you I'm allergic to this," as he dies.
Although maybe if Romulan ale is so strong, maybe Romulans can take a stronger drink.
That's a good point. Max said, give it 6 months and then binge it and you'll probably like it better. That's like often, that's often what happens. Sometimes when you watch it.
Well, a lot of,
because I'm saying now I like season 1 a little bit better now that I'm seeing
stream type shows with arcs like this can work better if you do binge it, because you're not sort of cut in this broken rhythm of episodes.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I definitely think someone would enjoy this episode a lot more if they watch it all at once or binged it in a. Or being too bingy always sort of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Don't be too bingy.
Just
be a bit bingy. Be as bingy
you try to
as you
watch it
should
just
be.
like nothing else for like.
No, I know what you're saying. There was a joke. Do you know the sketch comedy Portlandia? They did one where like what was it? Oh, it was Battlestar Galactica. They were binging.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And then they literally didn't leave their couches for like a long, like 6 months or something, and it was just like hilarious. But
but definitely watching that show that way, like a streamed show, I think you would enjoy this season better because you wouldn't be stuck in these episodes that didn't make any sense by themselves.
Sure. Yeah. And you know what? Like, just like Picard himself, I'm feeling a little sad that it's over. And
but we've already got new Trek.
But you look to the future, you live in the present, and just like Picard learned, I would still put that key back to watch season 2 all over again.
Or I would at least
not lock it in its room.
Look to the future of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, and then there's that.
I did not figure out how to do a good segue there.
Yeah, you should have brought Strange into it. I don't know, but that is a thing. So that's now happening, and we're gonna review that. We were gonna try to do 2 reviews today, but it's a good thing we didn't try because the first stream that we did of this one, we had some technical stuff. We're figuring it out as we go, folks. We did some better lighting today. Hopefully, you guys noticed that. This was Elnor not liking the shot.
Yeah, after the drink.
That was Raffi then saying, "You were dead for this whole season." That's his pissed off face being like, "I was?" No, he took a shot. And then Guinan's just watching on like, I like it.
Yeah, well, this is the part where Picard says, says like, we're all family. Oh yeah, there's an entire other scene.
We can't summarize this yet.
We were wrapping it up and it was over. But
yeah,
there's a
so let's quickly
that totally matters for the character arc.
It certainly does. So he gets back to Chateau Picard in the present time and the present timeline that they left initially, and the actual Laris is there.
She mentions that she fixed
his solarium or whatever we want to call this. It looks exactly the same as it did like 300 years.
I think there is different plants. Remember I said I thought it was exactly the same, but the other one had different plants in the left and right. There was more plants inside.
Well, so they moved the plants outside in the last 300 years. So anyway, so they're there, and she's leaving. She's got her stuff packed up, and she's ready to leave. Because if you remember in the beginning of the season, Picard just up and left her.
Which presumably just happened.
It would have just happened for her, I think.
More or less. I don't know how long it took them to go to that place where the Borg was and then come back and then have the party at Guinan's.
Oh, let's say a week tops. But so he's back there. She's about to leave. He had left her kind of high and dry, and part of it was because she was expressing feelings for him, and he couldn't handle it because he felt responsible for killing his mother, is what we know now.
Yeah, he felt the guilt. Or shame. Shame was the word they used.
Yeah, so now he's back. He's dealt with his shame. He's realized he needs to look to the future, not live in the past. And so he shows up and basically is kind of like, I'm sorry. I don't know if he actually says I'm sorry.
No, he says a lot of very vague and non-specific
It's vague
things.
And ambiguous, and she realizes this is great and smiles. And we're to understand, I guess it kind of implies that maybe she's not going to leave. Maybe she's giving him because he's mentioned something about a second chance.
Yeah.
And so that, that's actually great. Like, I like even in season 1 of the dynamics we liked was Laris and Siobhan. Remember, he was Siobhan.
But they killed him off.
They killed him off, but we liked Laris and we liked that connection.
Yeah, we
so
really
I like this.
I
like this situation, and So cool. So that's that. And then the one thing that then we'll totally actually wrap it up, and you can't see it as well here, is that then it does this kind of pull away shot where you see the hallway, and I think
so look back here.
Look how close they are to
the
glass there.
They're right at the edge of the glass of the
solarium.
Observing.
I'm going to call it a solarium.
I like solarium. But then here
they are, and I think I'll just talk about. I think that the filmmakers were probably like, well, let's kind of show this bright hallway in front of them, like the bright future they have ahead of them. That's
okay.
But in order to do this, they had to cheat them closer to the door so that we could see that bright light the way it is. And the camera starts pulling away, and you go, well, what the heck? They're nowhere near the window. Look how far from the window they are here.
They must have moved. Like,
so here they are again. Let's look at here they are. This is how close they are. And then suddenly, look how far from the window they are. Oh, you know what it was? I figured it out. Teleportation pens.
Someone teleportation pen. And then there's like, you have one more shot where we sort of show like the scale of how they were back in that other room.
Yeah. And there it is. We back away, and that's the end of season 2 of
And
Picard.
that's the end. Yeah, and that was just such a confusing ending. I was just
it was
so
confusing.
I was just so distracted about where they were.
The dynamics of like, when it backs away, and you're like, how are they there now? But I guess it kind of, again, to the final shot of the show didn't seem very well thought out. And maybe they thought, the audience won't pick up on that. Well, we did, and it was awkward and confused. And that's a lot of...
It was so weird, because I'm sure if we were at that level of paying attention, there's probably a lot of weird blocking in Star Trek. If you actually think about the way most sets,
yeah, but you don't pick up on it in a way that throws you off, though, usually.
On the bridges, on the bridge, and in the conference rooms of the different series, there's so many weird for staging.
Yeah.
It's just the way that was done, though. They put so much point into that.
Yeah, like they really focused on it.
It's like, it's not like they hid that weird staging.
Oh, you know the other reason they did that? Like, as a filmmaker myself, part of it was also they needed to back away and then go through the window.
Yeah.
But then for the previous scene, they needed them standing in front of the glass because it would have looked a lot crappier if they were standing as far away from it as they were.
Yeah.
So they were like, well, we need both. So we'll just do both. We need both, so we'll just do both. And they did.
They just did it.
So that's season 2.
They had a thing they wanted to do, and it didn't really matter how they got there. They just did it.
They did that a lot in this season. I think they'd be like, teleportation pens, we don't know. Teleporters are down. Well, they got here a different way. They're running in the woods. I want to see the footage, the long lost footage of Adam Soong running in the woods after he smoke bombed his way out of there.
Or of Q running in the woods. So
of Q running in the woods to get to the other point there. What's going to happen with Crusher next season, Max asking. I don't think Orla Brady is in season 3. Not sure though. So I reckon Picard may end up with Crusher.
So Ula is Laris.
Right. So Max predicting that maybe Picard ends up.
Ula.
No, I think
Ula is
Orla Brady.
No, she's Corey.
No, it wouldn't. Well, she plays both. She's the same actress.
I was confused. No, but I was confusing Laris with Corey.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But no, I think you're wrong though, because Mac's point saying that maybe Picard ends up with Crusher would affect that,
so
right?
Ula is Laris, yeah.
I think you're right. I think Mac's right. I think you were wrong and Mac was right.
It did. That is a bigger payoff as a viewer, because
Picard and Crusher.
Yeah, because that's a relationship we've dealt with for so long.
Well, in some ways, what I don't want to see, even though I liked the payoff with Laris, I don't want to see like Picard on the bridge and then he's like, "This is my new girlfriend, Laris," and Crusher's like, you know what I mean? Like I kind of, but we'll see. I don't know. I think the payoff with Picard and Crusher does make sense, but they were also, and Picard had a lot of loves that he would remember Vosh
and that lady who looked just like Crusher. They
played
piano
together. Yeah. And then he had a wife on the Inner Light. Like he literally was married with children. She never met Crusher. And it wasn't actually his wife, I guess. It was like a simulation that he was experiencing.
He had a simulated imaginary wife in the Nexus, too, remember?
Oh,
his
Christmas time.
His perfect imaginary place was
children.
Victorian Christmas, which makes a little more sense now that we understand his childhood.
Yeah, Max confirming Orla Brady is Laris. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, anyway. So there you have it. We've summarized final episode, and in doing that, we also kind of summarized the season.
Yeah, because it was wrapping up much of the season.
And we did it twice. You don't know that from watching because we couldn't delete the first one we did, but we basically did it twice. Thanks for tuning in, especially Mac. I pointed at the wrong camera. Thanks for always tuning in. It's been awesome. We're going to review some more stuff. Thanks for anyone else who tuned in. If you watch this later, let us know what you thought of season 2. Let us know what you thought of episode 10. What did you think of the whole season? What did you think of the last episode? Do you think it did a good job? yeah, were there things I'm sure there's lots of stuff we missed. Maybe someone in the comments could explain that final shot. Maybe they're like, no, it actually, the dynamic of the room, it's like a...
No, you're exactly right.
It's a holodeck.
Because they wanted to have both scenes.
Yeah, I'm exactly right. So tune in next time. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Like, subscribe, comment. YouTubers say that stuff.
Right.
We're YouTubers, Tim. Don't you forget it.
I do forget it.
I know. You're not just walking around downtown sometimes going like, I'm a YouTuber. It doesn't matter that only
I'm
3
a
people
creator.
watch. Yeah. These people should pay me big dollars. So, it's been good. It's been fun. I want to say a Q line, but I can't think of one of his lines to end it off.
All good things must come to an end.
Focus on the future. Don't live in the past, Picard. Don't worry about the people who have died in your life that you feel responsible for. That's awkward. But thanks for watching. And I hope, as always, I don't have any tea left. I can't do this without tea.
Fair.
It's rude to the audience. And I respect you guys more than that. I respect you more than that. Oh, before we go, Mac agreed the final shot was awful. And I hope, as always, we kept you engaged. We should add Romulan ale is what we should have had.